This is my top 5 beginner-friendly pet reptiles. Check it out. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Anything helps. Welcome to the office jungle. Number 1, we have the Hognose snake. There are a lot of reasons why the Hognose snake is a great beginner snake. One is because of their size. They're very small, very easily managed. You could house them in a smaller tank, about a 20-gallon long, and they'll do fine. Maybe if you have a female, maybe you get a little bit bigger. And they're not likely to bite. They don't really strike. They do bluff strikes with their little hog nose, so they don't really strike you. And if you do get bit, you kind of could see it coming. You can kind of stop it before it happens. So they're not gonna like bite you real fast. They'll kind of like nuzzle up and then bite. So it's not like a fast strike like a regular snake. Also, it's not gonna scare you like a regular snake. These snakes they're like cute. They got a little hog nose and they're not gonna scare your girlfriend or scare your wife or scare your kids. But they do huff up like a cobra and they do make a noise, so that could be kind of scary, but it's kind of cute. And they also play dead when they feel threatened, so that's kind of weird. I don't know if that's scary, but it's kind of weird. Also, their care requirements are super easy. You know, you give it a little heat, a little humidity, and that's really about it. They do well. You can put a UVB light above them. They do well with UVB. They're diurnal, so they're out during the day, so you could watch it slither around during the day, which is nice. A lot of beginners in the reptile hobby, they want to get something they can see during the day. So a hognose snake is kind of cool that way, where you could see them during the day. Number 2, I would say, is a crested gecko. Now, crested geckos are awesome. They're very inexpensive. You can get like a really basic crested gecko for about 50 bucks. But there's also other morphs that cost a little more, cost a little less. So it's a really cool variety of what you could get with them. They're easy to breed if you want to do like a breeding thing. I don't advise that if you're a beginner, but you could do that. Also, the best thing is that they don't require a heat lamp, because heat lamps kind of suck. They cost a lot of money to replace the bulbs. It's the most expensive part of the hobby, and you don't really need a heat lamp. They like it in like the 70s, like kind of room temperature. So as long as your house stays at like a room temperature throughout the year. Also, they're easy to feed. This is the best part about a crested gecko. You could feed them, you know, crickets and insects and stuff like that, but they really thrive off this little mix, like this rapashi, like smoothie mix that you could get at the store. Basically, it's just like this smoothie mix that you put in a little dish, you squirt it in, and then you leave it out and they just lick it up, and it has all the vitamins and everything that a crested gecko needs. And it's super easy. You don't have to deal with the little insects. This is probably the easiest reptile to keep. You just can't let it get too cold and you can't let it get too hot. And you just keep that humidity pretty high and they'll do fine, which you can achieve by just spraying down the enclosure every once in a while, and they'll do great. Number 3 best beginner reptile to keep is, of course, the leopard gecko. The leopard gecko is super easy to keep. They're actually very personable for a gecko. Mine comes on and like scratches at the tank. Let's see if we can get her to come out here. I just do a little tip, 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 tap, 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 tap. She'll usually come out and scratch at the tank and say what's up. And she's very curious and very excited about what's going on. Oh, here she comes. See, she was just sleeping and now she's like coming out to say what's up. Come on. Hi. Oh. When I first got my leopard gecko, she was very scared. Whenever I walked in the room, she would go hide. And now I built a connection with it where she's not afraid or anything. And she just comes right up, comes right out. Hi. But leopard geckos are awesome. They also come in a bunch of different colors and morphs that you could choose from. They're a little bit more expensive than the crested gecko, but that's okay. They're also easy to feed, also kind of like the crested gecko. They don't eat like that fruit smoothie mix. They only eat a few insects, you know, every couple of days, so you're not constantly dumping in, you know, crickets and all these mealworms and stuff. And they're fun. They hang out with you. They kind of have like their little personalities. They're very curious and want to look at everything and run around. They've got eyelids, unlike a lot of other geckos, which is kind of cool. So they look like they're like blinking and looking at you. They're just really great reptiles that are very beginner friendly. Number 4 is not really a reptile. It's not a reptile, it's an amphibian, but I wanted to include it in this list. It is a White's tree frog, or an Australian tree frog, or a dumpy frog, some people call it. But these frogs are great. They're super easy to keep. They're fun, they're funny. They don't need that much humidity for a frog, which is great, because humidity is what's hard about keeping frogs, is because you have to keep that humidity up, which usually means an automatic mister or constantly going in there and misting throughout the day. So these frogs, they're from Australia, so they like it a little more dry. So they do well in like a dry environment. Just keep a water bowl in their enclosure or some kind of like water element in the enclosure and they'll be fine. They're also cohabitable, so you can keep a few together if you have a big enough enclosure, of course. You can keep a few of them together and they'll live together. Make sure they're kind of the same size, because I think they will eat each other if they're not the same size, which is pretty wild. It's probably the easiest amphibian you can keep. Also, they're just big fat frogs. They're dumpy frogs. Who doesn't want just like a dumpy frog? You can hold sometimes, make sure you wash your hands or wear a glove. You could hold in your hand and it's just this big fat frog. Don't got no claws, I can't scratch you, it just hops around. Doesn't really got any teeth. They're great, they're fun. When they hunt, hunting at night is hilarious, watching them jump around, eat all the crickets, these fat frogs. So, dumpy tree frogs, White's tree frogs, Australian tree frogs, whatever you want to call them, they are great, great animals to keep. And number 5 is going to be a controversial one. I'm going to say number 5 is going to be a red-foot tortoise. Now this is controversial because the care requirements are actually pretty difficult, but if you're a beginner and this is like your only pet reptile, it's pretty manageable. And if you get it as if you get them as babies, they're more manageable in the beginning and become less manageable when they're adults. But because they are a smaller size tortoise, when they're adults, they're not that big. So you can keep them inside, but you're gonna need kind of like a bigger enclosure, but not like a gigantic enclosure like some of these tortoises need. When they're an adult, you can keep them in like a 6x2 enclosure during the winter when it's too cold outside. In the summer, you can just let it outside in your backyard, just keep it in a little, enclosure out there, and they'll do great. Redfoot tortoises, they just like the humidity up a little more. This is why the care requirements are a little higher. They like a very humid atmosphere, so keeping that humidity is going to be a little harder. But if you could figure it out, if you could set up a automatic misting system or something like that, it's not a problem. It's easy. They also eat basically everything because they're one of the few tortoises that like protein in their diet. So they'll eat, insects or whatever. They basically eat everything. You could basically just throw all these scrap vegetables and, insects into a bowl. They'll eat it up, some fruit, and they're happy as can be. They also are very, very personable. This is my baby redfoot tortoise, Turtle Tim. He is about maybe a year old, and this is how small he is still. So they stay pretty small for a long time. I keep him in like a 3x18x18 enclosure right now, and it's working for him because he's just so small. It takes him, 10 minutes to go around his entire enclosure because he's so slow and so small. He's very personable. When I come into the room, he'll go right up to the glass and start scratching on the glass, wanting food. It's very cute and it's very dog-like. So if you want an animal that's kind of like a dog, these animals are very personable, like you would see in a dog. Redfoot tortoises are weird where they are not afraid of people. They kind of see people and they're like, they'll walk right up to you and go, "Well, what's up? What do you got? What kind of food you got for me?" So I love Turtle Tim. He is the man. He might be a female because he doesn't have that concave stomach. You can kind of feel it, but I guess we won't know yet. I feed him, I fill up his bowl once every other day, and he still has scraps left over. I just replace his like vegetables because they get all mushy and nasty. He's one of the Office Jungle's prime residents. We can't live without Turtle Tim here. He's one of the best guys we got. But that's about it, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think the best beginner reptile is, the best beginner amphibian is. Whatever you think, let me know. This is just a list that I made that I wanted to share to, you know, if you're thinking about getting a reptile. I have a lot of my friends are ask me, I want to get a reptile, but I don't know which one. And these are probably the 5 that I always recommend. So let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, help me out. I'm growing. Look at my subscriber count. It's so small. And people always ask, how is your subscriber count so small? Your videos are so good. And I go, well, you got to subscribe, share, comment, like, all of that. Thank you very much. See you on the other side.